Ok, Jesús, veo que ya hay intérpretes.
A ver, ¿podemos hacer pruebas de favor?
Ok. Hola, hola. No sé, tengo que hablar para que traduzcan en otros idiomas, pero no lo estoy escuchando.
Si quieres prueba, yo te digo.
Ok. Bueno, sigo hablando en español y vuelvo a decir la misma explicación. Solo panelistas, cámara encendida durante todo el panel, toda la sesión. Micrófonos apagados, solo los abrimos cuando nos toca la palabra. Jesús, estamos a 2 minutos y no tengo la interpretación.
No.
Dame un segundo.
Sí, pero entonces ¿puedes parar el countdown?
We're fixing the translation. Oh, the audio translation because there it is. Yes.
¿Sí? ¿Ya funciona? A ver. Vuelvo a hablar en español, Euge, y me dices. Ok.
Ya hay traducción.
Vamos a salir ya en 59 minutos. Perfecto. Sara y Manal, les voy a ceder el control de la sesión porque la van a moderar, así que mucha suerte y disfrutemos el diálogo. Voy a apagar mi micrófono y mi cámara.
Suerte, colegas. Good luck.
Hola, yo soy Sara Artemisa Román Sala, soy una chica trans de 16 años y vengo de parte de Red de Familias Trans y colectiva Diversidad en Resistencia. Bueno, hoy moderaré el panel junto a Manal y estoy bastante contenta y feliz de estar aquí. Y pues me gustaría empezar con que cada quien se presentara en menos de un minuto para después iniciar con la conversación. Le cedo la palabra a Darshana.
Hello, namaste. This is Darshana Rijal from Nepal. I'm 16 years old and currently in my last year of high school. I have been volunteering for 3 years now. I am part of the Women Deliver Young Leader class of 2020. I have also been nominated as top 100 feminists from the Global South. My advocacy usually revolves around child marriage and women violence, especially in the rural areas of Nepal. It is an immense pleasure to be here in this Generation Equality Forum. I look forward to sharing my thoughts and hearing from you guys. Thank you.
Muchas gracias. Bueno, ahora le cedo la palabra a Xally.
Hola a todas, mi nombre es Joselyn Padilla Martínez. Soy una adolescente indígena de la región mixteca de Tlaxiaco, Oaxaca, México. Tengo 15 años y estudio el tercer grado de secundaria. Este espacio es muy importante para mí y también es importante que nos tomen en cuenta nuestra voz y estoy muy emocionada de compartir nuestras distintas ideas.
Muchas gracias, Xally. Ahora procedo a darle la palabra a Kalpa.
Hi everyone, my name is Kalpa. I'm 17 years old and I'm from India. I'm one of the Women Deliver Young Leaders, class of 2020. My advocacy work has been focused around menstrual hygiene awareness, body positivity, and adolescent mental health. As we gather here today with some of the amazing world leaders, I would like to take this moment to remind you all that lives of adolescent girls are not waiting for your policies and laws. They are happening right now. Every step of the way, please ask yourself, is this really the best you can do for us?
Muchas gracias, Kalpa, por tus palabras. Y bueno, ahora le doy la palabra a Dayoun.
Hi everyone, I'm Dayoun Song, and I am from South Korea, and I am calling in from Hanoi, Vietnam. And I'm 17 years old, and I'm currently attending my high school. And I am also a Woman Deliver Young Leader, class of 2020. And my advocacy work usually lies in gender inequality and eradicating gender conventions. So it's a great pleasure to be here today, and I'm looking forward to sharing my thoughts with all of you. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Dayoun. Ahora le doy la palabra a Gulmina.
Hello everyone, I'm Gulmina from Pakistan. I am also a Women Deliver Young Leader and class of 2020. I'm currently pursuing my bachelor's degree in the United States, and my activism focuses around the economic empowerment of women and their right to education. I'm really happy to be here today.
Muchas gracias. Ahora le doy la palabra a Dania.
Thank you, Sara. Hi, everyone. My name is Dania. I am a 14-year-old Girl Guide from Malaysia. Today, I'm representing the World Association of Girl Guides and Girl Scouts, or WAGS for short. I am an advocate for youth leadership and have represented my country at regional guiding conferences. Just a few days ago, I was also given the privilege to be a spokesperson at UN's very own Generation Equality Pre-Forum. I'm very excited to be here, and thank you for having me.
Muchísimas gracias. Ahora le daré la palabra a Mia.
Hi everyone, my name is Mia and I am an 11-year-old from Malaysia. As an 11-year-old, I have had the opportunity to facilitate various programs within my Girl Guide group, like the Stand Together for Peace and Free Being Me program by WAGS, while also being a volunteer for an NGO called Bulan Sisters that addresses period poverty. As an active participant of Girls Takeover by women's aid organizations, I am most passionate talking about body confidence, busting image myth, and stopping violence against women. I love doing arts, especially digital drawing and animation. I usually share my art and some beneficial advocacy content on my YouTube channel. I am deeply honored to be here today and to be heard. Thank you so much for having me.
Gracias a ti, Mia. Ahora le doy la palabra a Jayathma.
Thank you, Sara. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Jayathma Wickramanayake. I'm the United Nations Secretary General's Envoy on Youth. That means I'm the youngest person in the United Nations Secretary General's cabinet, and I serve as an advisor and representative to the UN Secretary General on youth issues. So it's such an honor for me to be here today and share this virtual stage with so many inspiring girl advocates. Thank you for having me.
Muchas gracias, Jayathma. Bueno, ahora le doy la palabra a Abdul.
Hello. Good morning from Bangladesh. I am Dr. Hossain. I served in the government of Bangladesh for almost 31 years and as a project director of multi-sectoral program on violence against women under the Ministry of Women and Children Affairs for almost 15 years. And that program is jointly implemented by the government of Bangladesh and government of Denmark in collaboration with 12 ministries to address violence against women and children. And also, I have some regional engagement, and simultaneously, I have 3 other responsibilities. One is the toll-free helpline project for women and children in SAARC member states. I was the LIA for the whole region and the implementing agency for Bangladesh, and promoting health and reproductive health and nutrition for the women and children, and the Street Children Rehabilitation Program. Now I am working as a national consultant of UNDP Bangladesh to conduct a national inquiry on violence against women and children and rape for National Human Rights Commission Bangladesh. I am also working to empower the adolescents and youths in Bangladesh, run an online program on I am an 18th for the youth. I have also mobilized the organizations and the platforms to empower the adolescents, disadvantaged, and street children in Bangladesh. Thank you so much to see so many young leaders across the world. Thank you so much for joining me.
Muchas gracias. Bueno, ahora le doy la palabra a Manal.
Hi everyone, I'm joining in today from New York, but I'm originally from Pakistan. I'm also the She Decides representative for the year 2020. I'm a journalist and a filmmaker, and my work usually revolves around sexual and reproductive health of women and teenage girls.
Ok, muchas gracias. Bueno, en primer lugar quería preguntar algo, y es, ¿cómo quieren que sea su futuro? ¿Cómo o qué tipo de cambios quisieran ver? Y bueno, ya para los adultos, las adultas, ¿qué cambios crees que son necesarios para lograr una transformación global en el mundo? Bueno, ahora le doy la palabra a Xally.
Pues quiero que existan mejores condiciones de vida para las niñas, adolescentes y mujeres, es decir, que no suframos ningún tipo de violencia. También que nos garanticen nuestros derechos, el derecho a la vida, ya que en muchos casos nos privan de ella. En la región de la Mixteca existen altos índices de feminicidio y violencia sexual, por lo que se decretó la alerta de violencia de género. Nosotras tenemos derecho a vivir sin miedo en un ambiente seguro, a tener escuelas, espacios de juego y esparcimiento libres de cualquier violencia. Que nuestra educación sea de calidad, con docentes capacitados de acuerdo a nuestro contexto cultural y que cuenten con perspectiva de género. Que se nos garantice la educación sexual con información científica y libre de prejuicios, porque a veces nos las niegan o dan información incompleta. Tener accesos a centros de salud con personas capacitadas y que respeten nuestra forma de vida. En un encuentro que realizó la organización Mano Vuelta, conocí a diferentes niñas de mi región con diferentes edades y entendí que hay diversos problemas y que necesitan ser atendidos con respeto. Asimismo, me gustaría que todas tengamos una vivienda digna y con los servicios básicos. También necesitamos acceso a las tecnologías de la información y medios de comunicación para poder conectarnos a nuestras clases, porque con la pandemia bajaron mucho los alumnos y se ha registrado deserción escolar. Es urgente el acceso a la educación e información en nuestra lengua. Tan solo en mi comunidad hay 81 variantes del mixteco y 4 de triqui, que son las lenguas indígenas que se hablan donde yo vivo. Considero que es necesario la atención a nuestra salud mental, porque la pandemia nos ha traído distintos problemas emocionales que los adultos no logran mirar y por lo tanto no los atienden. Por último, espero que el respeto hacia nuestros territorios como pueblos originarios sea efectivo. Tenemos derecho a vivir en un medio ambiente sano, libre de minerías y empresas extractivistas, ya que es el medio en el que creceremos. Gracias.
Muchas gracias por tus palabras, Xally. Bueno, ahora procedo a darle la palabra a Dania.
Thank you so much. If I was a woman 100 years ago, I would have just won the right to vote. Even having a space like this to speak would have been a godsend. Now, I rarely give a second thought to the rights that women before me fought so hard to get. And for a moment, I think, well, haven't we already achieved gender justice? But then I step outside my house and I'm afraid to walk alone at night. I witness female leaders being called bossy, while men of similar actions, they are just being assertive. I see men facing harassment and abuse being brushed aside, and watch my brothers grow up in a world that tells them that the suppression of emotion is a sign of strength. At the same time, my trans and non-binary friends have to fight to keep their very identities from being invalidated. While I realize that we have come a long way, there is still much work to be done. Fighting for gender justice has gone from the women's suffrage to reposting something on Instagram. While the mainstream media has helped to amplify our message, it has also silenced many voices with views that don't comply with the majority. It has turned people away from our movement because it has become too political. The Beijing Platform for Declaration and Action was initiated 12 years before I was born and went on for 14 years after that. Yet, none of the commitments made were followed through, almost 3 decades later. From climate action to youth empowerment, this is an issue that keeps happening in the field of advocacy. Could it be that we are setting goals that are too ambitious, or that the lack of accountability for these huge institutions is setting us up for failure? Or is it that we are approaching gender justice from an angle that is completely ineffective? One thing I do know is that in today's world, gender inequality stems from the cracks and crevices of everyday life, from our homes to the largest establishments of our nations. Our prejudices and stereotypes are deeply ingrained in our mindset and manifests as how we view people's identities. It is the kind of inequality that cannot be solved by a law, something that all of us participate in unless we actively try not to. I want a future where equal opportunities for all gender identities is not deemed too political to be discussed, because frankly, there is nothing political about basic human rights. I want a future where young people are considered equal stakeholders in gender justice. The questions I've raised require collaboration to answer and eventually solve. It is not possible for any one person to have the answers, be it a current leader or a youth advocate. Include young people in gender justice advocacy, because we bring the perspective of those who will see the repercussions of your actions in a few years' time. The bottom line is that we need to start rethinking how we approach gender justice as businesses and institutions. I want to see changes in how we set goals and commitments. to make plans more specific with a time frame and a group of independent volunteers keeping stakeholders accountable. It all starts with having these uncomfortable conversations at home and being okay with disagreeing by always enforcing critical thinking. So let's have these difficult discussions so that 26 years from now, we will have something to show for ourselves. Thank you. I would like to pass it on to Darshana.
The girls first. I dream of a better world. I'm sorry. I dream of a better world. I dream of a better world where no one is superior by birth, gender, and unfair practices. Being brought up in a developing nation with patriarchal society, I have personally witnessed cases of gender violence, such as marrying off a girl child at as young as age of 15 and depriving girls from proper education to keep them from being independent. Since I was brought up in the capital city, I always wondered and dreamt of the beautiful village life with rivers, hills, and Mother Nature herself. But in Nepal, the beauty of villages, just as in the city, is notoriously surrounded with problems like gender inequality and violence towards women and girls. As I became more exposed to the outer world, I realized it was not just Nepal, but the whole world had been fighting against this discriminatory practice for a long time. There have been changes, and women are given more rights and more opportunities. However, the efforts we are putting in is not giving the results that we want. This problem of gender inequality is still prevalent in our society despite the efforts made. In developing nations, approximately 40% of girls are compelled to get married before the age of 18. Around the globe, 132 million girls drop out of school every year. 75 national economies still limit women's right to manage assets and have given no right to inherit their parents' property. With all these evidences still surrounding us, we still dream of a gender equal society. To tackle this, empowering women, more specifically empowering girls, I believe is the best approach. To invest in girls means to see the number of capable, independent, and successful women in the future increase. Despite the various challenges, I believe adolescent girls, if provided with the opportunity for quality education, equal rights in property, equal respect, and healthy behavior in every community around the globe, I am positive that gender inequality will decrease in the future. I grew up in a supporting family with proper education. It is thanks to my parents' support that I am here delivering my thoughts and ideas in this international platform today. Due to the strong base of education and understanding that I, as a teen girl, have in my family, I am confident that I won't be suppressed by anyone in the future and won't need to depend on someone else. I want to see this benefit that I have for all the girls around the globe by 20 years from now. This is what I dream of. I dream of nothing more than a gender equal society. A society where no one is treated superior than other just because of their gender. For which I believe Generation Equality Forum should act as a platform for young people around the globe. By incorporating the ideas from us, the younger generations, into every decision taken, together we can tackle gender inequality. Thank you.
Muchas gracias por tus palabras, Darshana. Y bueno, procedo a darle la palabra a Jayathma.
Thank you, Sara. First, let me also acknowledge what the girl advocates before me have said and really resonate with a lot of the challenges they were mentioning themselves. being a young woman who was brought up in a very patriarchal society in Sri Lanka, my home country, and sort of having to go through some of the very similar challenges growing up, and still, even in my position at a very high level at the United Nations, I still face these types of discrimination and stereotyping and really challenges and barriers when it comes to doing my work and expressing myself. But speaking to your question on how do we bring about transformational change, I think the speakers before me has really outlined what our approach should be, and I think it's two-pronged. One is the change that needs to happen at a policy level. So all the commitments we have made at Beijing 25 years ago, all of the commitments we have made in the Sustainable Development Goals, all of the commitments we have made in various international human rights declarations, commitments, the CEDAW, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, this needs to be implemented, or else, rights on a paper doesn't mean anything as long as they are rights that real people in real communities can enjoy for themselves. So how do we make that translation from policy to practice happen? How do we hold our leaders accountable? How do we make sure as countries, as citizens, we also elect leaders to positions of power who commit to these values and who implement these values, I think is very important. And a lot of the young people today are very much aware of this. And this is why you see young people out in the streets from Chile to Iraq to Lebanon to Sudan to Myanmar right now. You see young people on the streets really demanding this accountability from leaders. And the second layer of change, I think, that needs to happen is at the community level and at the family level. I think Darshana was talking about sort of the conducive environment that her family created for her in order to have the education and to be able to speak up. And we know so many girls who are being silenced just because they are girls. So this needs a attitudinal change, a societal change in our family units, in our schools, in our communities, to respect the leadership, respect the agency of young women and girls, to not see them as adults in training, but as full citizens and full individuals who are capable of making decisions, who are capable of taking leadership, who are capable of contributing to society. This can't only happen among women. We need to have powerful allies within men and boys too. So how do we create these uncomfortable conversations, as the first speaker said, within the comforts of our homes, within the comforts of our universities, our schools, in order to have these conversations and bring about that social change. So these two can sort of merge at one point, the policy changes and the social changes, and then we will be able to bring transformational change. Otherwise, I think just like in the last 25 years, we will see sort of small incremental steps and changes, which will probably take us 200 years more to achieve gender equality. And that's not what we want. We need transformational change. We can create huge, large-scale changes so that our generation or the generations just after us can enjoy the full rights and freedoms as women and girls, as LGBTIQ people, regardless of what their gender is.
Muchísimas gracias a todas y sus palabras. Creo que definitivamente impactan en la mente colectiva de las personas cuando hablamos de este tipo de temas. Y concuerdo completamente en que este tipo de conversaciones, estas conversaciones incómodas, se tienen que dar. Necesitamos encontrar en colectivo la solución a todos estos problemas, porque nos hemos dado cuenta que nuestros sistemas y aquellas cosas que utilizábamos para abordarlos tal vez no están funcionando del todo y que la sociedad necesita cambiar ya. Y pues justamente por eso, muchas adolescentes y mujeres queremos un mundo más igualitario. Y claro, esta lucha lleva mucho tiempo y trabajo, pero más que nada, personas que tengan el valor para alzar la voz, para pedir justicia, para luchar por la libertad. Y es por eso que les pregunto, ¿cómo comenzó su activismo y cómo ha sido ese proceso? Claro, si nos pueden contar sobre sus frustraciones, sus oportunidades que han encontrado en el tiempo de su activismo. También me gustaría añadir una pregunta para los adultos, que si creen que hay una oportunidad de cambio ahora, ¿y cómo sería esta? Por eso voy a darle la palabra a Kalpa.
Thank you, Sara. On Independence Day last year, I asked adolescent girls, what does freedom mean to you? I want all of you to think about this question. And in the end of my intervention, I'll let you all know what they said. I started my activism work 2 years back during the summer of 2019, when I sent an email to the principal of my school requesting the permission to set up a gender sensitivity club. I remember this being a constant nagging thought in my mind, wanting to do something for a more equal world. I didn't like the way I couldn't speak to my friends about periods without feeling ashamed, how conveniently my teachers just skipped the chapter about reaching adolescence, how all of us were dealing with body image issues, and how much I wanted to speak to my peers about all of this, and yet there was no safe space for us to be ourselves. I could see how the patriarchal standards were forcing the women around me into being something they weren't. I didn't want to change, and activism was the only way to express myself. So immediately after the summer break, the process was in full force, with me signing up students, getting permissions, preparing for the first club session. It wasn't easy. Getting permissions in itself was a whole task. There was only so much we were allowed to discuss inside the school premises. Moreover, even in the Google Forms, we weren't allowed to use they, them pronouns. So we just ended up eliminating the segment of gender. One of the major opportunities that we discovered in the process was the power of male allies, especially adolescent boys. I'll give you an example. So we organized a talk on menstrual hygiene awareness, and in the feedback segment, boys responded that it was the first time someone had actually told them what periods are. It was not that they felt uncomfortable, but rather they thought that they were respecting the privacy. Another opportunity we discovered was advocacy in educational institutions. So out of all the projects we implemented, the ones in the schools were most successful. And this was because we could target a number of adolescents at the same time. And even a change in one mindset could bring a ripple effect due to peer pressure. Coming back to the question I asked in the beginning, what does freedom mean to you? Out of 10 girls, 8 replied that freedom meant that they were able to run in the streets at midnight, unsupervised and without any fear. I want all of you to think about this. 8 out of 10 girls just wanting basic safety. We can form as many policies and laws as we want, and they are very, very important. But at the end of the day, it all comes back to ensuring that the space around you, around each one of you, is safe and equitable for every gender. Thank you for this opportunity, and a quick shout out to Women Deliver, UN Women, Lorraine, Sumit, and Sanya for your support. Thank you. This was truly an honor.
Muchas gracias, Kalpa. Bueno, para continuar, me gustaría darle la palabra a Gulmina.
A culture barrier that almost every woman in Pakistan faces is an inability, is a hindrance towards her right to economic empowerment and her right to education. It wasn't until someone very close to me suffered from this culture norm of our society that I realized how severe the situation is, how many lives have been destroyed by the lack of education and by their financial dependency on the men in their lives. Most parents in Pakistan, they don't care about educating their daughters or making them economically empowered or self-sufficient until they're either divorced, their husband abuses them, or in the worst case scenario, they're dead. And that's when they realize we need to make our daughters self-reliant and self-sufficient. Now, the problem with this is, why isn't our approach to empower them? Why is our approach dependent on scenarios that, oh, if this happens, then we need to empower them. If this happens, then we need to empower them. Why don't we have the mindset that we need to empower our daughters, our sisters, our mothers from the start? And this is something that I want to work towards. And this is something that I believe in because it's something that I've seen personally through the people around me throughout my life, which is why my advocacy started when I was 12. And since then, I've been an avid supporter of the right to education and the right to economic empowerment of women. This led to me to start my initiative, Femission, an online platform through which, through the art of storytelling, I convey my message of the importance of education to the masses. I target the youth mainly because I believe that the youth is the most impressionable. They're the ones that are still deciding which side they want to be on. They're deciding which opinion they want to adopt. They're deciding what is right and what is wrong. They're deciding if they want to be a misogynist or not. And which is why it's very important to make sure that they don't start following the wrong ideals that our culture perpetuates. It's important for them to realize that the ideals and the atmosphere, the society that the culture wants us to propagate and the society that our culture wants us to work towards is wrong. It's unfair, it's unjust, and it only works to the benefit of one gender. Which is why I believe that it's very important for the youth to take a stand and for us to include the youth in our conversation, in conversations of leadership and policy making, which is because the youth has more perspective than the generations before us. The generations before us are stagnant to believe that the cultures that they believed so much in may be unfair or unjust. They are reluctant to understand that the practices that they've been following for centuries, for decades, aren't leading anywhere. They're just regressing societal growth, which is why I believe that the youth should be more included in conversations of gender equality. Thank you so much.
Muchas gracias, Gulmina. Bueno, ahora le doy la palabra a Abdul. Bueno, a Abdul.
Hello. Hello, can I speak?
Sí.
Hello, Sara.
Sí, se escucha bien.
Barbara, can I speak? Okay. Okay, thank you so much for giving me the floor. And my question was basically what would like to see the governments, business and the society to do more to make the world more equal actually. The government actually at the end of the day, the government has the all the responsibilities actually to do all these things. And then what they can introduce the systematic approach through policy documents, such as the adopting national policies, action plans, and the legal instrument and special programs and projects. So I can give you one example. The Ministry of Women and Children Affairs in Bangladesh runs around 7,000 adolescents clubs. In each club, there are 20 girls and 10 boys. And this is a very one pilot program in Bangladesh. The other NGOs, they are following this model actually. And again, the government can also identify the gaps and inequality between the urban and the rural settings also promote the disadvantaged young generations through financial supports. We have one special program from our Honorable Prime Minister's fund for the poor students, and we can also support the social safety net programs for the poor families of their children, creating opportunities for the better education and extra academic activities. Here in Bangladesh, I think there are so many business communities who come forward with their corporate social responsibilities to sensitize the policymakers, stakeholders, and activists. They can also support the national and the local level NGOs for involving the adolescent youth towards their protection and development. Civil society in Bangladesh is very vibrant actually. They have a number of platforms and networks. They can also play a vital role for lobbying with the local administration, law enforcement agencies, and the local government institutions for promoting the engagements of the adolescents and youth and creating more scope and opportunity for extra academic activities, social and cultural participation. I have another question actually for me. So how can be ensured that this action coalition to include the Girls and Adolescents Club, network and platform NGOs and CSOs can promote the sharing of good practices, such as multi-sectoral approach, the working together from the volunteers like the Adolescents Club, School Cabinet, Youth for Change, National Children Task Force. So they are actually mobilizing the adolescents, children, and also the boys and girls and the youth. And one program is very, very popular in the rural areas of Bangladesh. It is called the Red Card to the Child Marriage. And then they can also identify and promoting the change makers in the community and society to demonstrate their achievements in empowering the young generation. I think a couple of years back, there was a campaign, Weekend campaign in Bangladesh. They have identified around 200,000 change makers all over Bangladesh. It created actually very positive change in the Bangladesh community. There was another actually what alliances and actions are needed to build a better future for girls in Bangladesh. In Bangladesh, actually, there are very huge organizations and the platforms are working together, particularly the Child Rights Forum, National Advocacy Forum for Girl Rights, and the Street Children Activist Network, Girls Not Brides, actually, and the National Children Task Force. They are mobilizing the youth and adults all over the country, actually. They organize a number of programs for their sensitization, awareness. Once they are sensitized, then they can actually make lobby actually with the local community. And again, the adolescent youth are more vibrant through their engagements in their committees and the networks by the government actually. In those committees, they can raise their issues such as the sexual and reproductive health and rights and child marriage, violence against children, particularly rape and sexual harassment. I can give you one example. So recently, I think a couple of months before, there was a incidents of rape all on a sudden in the university campus. Then all on a sudden, there is a huge mobilization by the young community. Then the government has come up actually to make the amendment in a law, and then they introduced the death penalty for the rapist and also made the DNA profiling test compulsory for the. I have two recommendations actually how we can go ahead. One is the alignment should be made between the policy documents such as the SDGs, 5-year plan of the state party, country strategy of the development partners and UN agencies towards promoting common priorities and sectoral engagement. And the second one, the promoting multi-sectoral and coordinated approach through networks and platforms of professionals, stakeholders and activists towards creating better future for young boys and girls. I think this sharing the good practices and success stories of change makers around the world can create a positive change in the society. This is all from myself. Thank you so much for giving me the floor.
Thank you so much, Abdul, for your intervention. So I just wanted to add, so all these future plans that we have been talking about, they directly impact the girls and young people. And programs such as action coalitions must integrate the importance of like specific vulnerabilities that we face as young people. So what would you all like the governments to do, and how would you imagine the society to be more equal? How can it be ensured?
Thank you so much. Actually, during my tenure in the government, actually, what we have always promoted that to engage the young boys and girls in to bring them in the consultation, to listen them carefully and to accommodate their concerns and remarks, and to do actually what will be benefited to them actually. And then when we form the committees from the national level to the grassroots level, then we incorporate we try to accommodate the children representatives, youth representatives, and also the organizations who are working for the welfare of them. So they will be also, they are also included. In that way actually, so we take their concern, their recommendations, their remarks actually. And then this, I think, there was a great change in Bangladesh. So to accommodate these people in the national process for framing the documents like national policy, national women development policy, national children policies, national youth policies, and all these policies, while during the consultations meetings, the young generations are invited, and also the people who are working for in different networks and platforms, they are included, and particularly the girls not brides and the coalition against domestic violence. These people are very much consulted actually during this process. So that is why I am very much hopeful actually. The government is very much interested to include the organizations and also the representatives both from the urban settings and also from the rural communities. And you know, all these committees are actually at the national level, at the divisional level, and the grassroots level. So in the grassroots level, so these young children can contribute to raise their issues before the policymakers. That creates a great change to my consideration. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your input. Now we'd like to hear from some young people on the panel. So I'll give it to Dayoun Song.
Thank you. So to begin with, I want a world with no gender conventions, and I want a world where my gender does not matter for anything. So I think the decision makers should keep in mind that there are lots of girls out there who are just simply not informed of all the actions going on, and even where the gender inequality stems from. So we cannot just expect a girl to just suddenly realize what she's deprived of or what rights she doesn't even have. So I believe that all governments should be empowering young people with proper high-level education that will let them acknowledge these problems. So in South Korea, gender stereotypes are so pervasive in society, so that in many cases, it's even considered as part of our culture. So this really pushes girls and women away from society to perform these strictly defined domestic duties and remain silent. And this is partly displayed in the low percentage of female politicians in Korea, which is currently merely 17%. So I started my activism because I experienced these stereotypes myself. So as a girl, I was objectified head to foot in my school. And this is because most public schools regulate everything for girls. So from girls' hair to face, body, and clothes. And in school, I was taught to be silent, and I was taught that menstruation happened only because it was my duty as a woman to bear children, whether I wanted or not. And also, I was taught to feel vulnerable only because I was a girl. And education about my own body revolved around these patriarchal norms. So I could start to think outside of these stereotypes only when I gained access to education that told me these norms were oppressing me and it wasn't my fault. So, and this is a scenario that was only possible because I had the privilege of this high level education. And many girls in Korea and outside in the world don't have this. So in my perspective, the most pressing issue to deal with to build a better future for girls and adolescents is to eradicate these gender norms that are persisting so firmly in today's society. And I believe that this is the root of gender inequality. So appropriate education should come first to tell everyone that these gender norms, this patriarchy exists, and these gender norms are rooted so deeply that we just take it in so naturally. And girls and adolescents need education that explains these conventions to them, and then they should be taught skills and provided resources to build their leadership. So this will also become a great supporting force for the action coalitions, because I believe that bringing in more young voices is the best way to ensure that all action coalition does include girls and adolescents issue. So I want the governments, business, and society to allocate budgets to provide affordable education that promotes gender equality. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your work and your precious thoughts. All these thoughts and ideas are what take us forward. Now I would like to request Mia to come forward.
Thank you so much for the question, Manal. I really do agree with Dayoun. Okay. As an 11-year-old, I often feel unheard. At school, even though we are included in the organization chart as leaders in our classes or clubs, but usually we are not able to make any decisions or to lead the activities for our classes or clubs. Only teachers can make decisions and we just have to follow. When we have ideas, most of the time they will be brushed off just like that. Sometimes even get mocked by adults around us. When this happens so frequently, I feel that our ideas and voices don't matter just because we are little and we don't know any better. I am 11, yes. I may not know all the big things that are happening around the world as many adults do, but I know I should get the opportunity to be myself and lead my future to build my own dreams. So I would like to ask the governments, especially the Education Ministry, to start to empower the teachers, to empower students like me. Teachers are supposed to be our core support systems, not the reason we feel invisible. I believe with the right tools in the education system, we can produce more capable young leaders. There needs to be more platforms and spaces where young girls like myself are heard. We have to stop trying to produce robots who only know how to take instructions but can't think for themselves. We have to stop trying to shut down little kids just because adults have to protect their ego. Stop being intimidated by kids like us. We are not here to take your roles as adults. We are here to learn from you to be a better you for our own future. In making sure that each action coalition includes girls and adolescents issues, we need more participation of young girls in forums like this. Help them be heard. Help them unmute. One girl can do so much, but 1,000 more collectively can have a greater impact on the world. There is an increasing need for large entities, corporations, and organizations to invest in girls and young women like myself to mobilize us. As agents of change in our advocacy efforts, we need more businesses and also the society to invest and sponsor young girls to do their own campaign and advocacy. I mean, you can't possibly create a leader without giving them the opportunity to lead. So there's a lot of things you can do to help them grow. One of them is sponsoring and providing them the right platform. With that said, I'm calling all of you present here today to invest in the development of young girls and women. Either way, you are going to spend your money. So why not spend your money on us? We are an investment, not an expense. Do not underestimate our potential just because we are considered young. Girls can do a lot if given the opportunity to do so. Us little girls can do this. We just need you adults to support us and give us the chance to prove ourselves. Nothing about girls without girls. I am Mia and I stand here representing 10 million girls and young women from the World Association of Girl Guides and Girl Scouts. Thank you.
Thank you so much for inspiring all of us. Mia, we're all feeling very energized. Now I would like to ask Jayathma for her thoughts.
Thank you, Manal. I think, Mia said it all, and I really don't have anything else to add. She really encompassed the importance of girls' leadership, but also gave very concrete recommendations as to how how the action coalitions can include girls and their voices better. So my recommendation would be to listen to Mia's recommendations. But just to maybe recap, I think it's important that we have girls themselves speaking and contributing to the decisions that the action coalitions will make. We should stop sort of, trying to be the voice of the voiceless, or, trying to be the voice of so many other people. We should just create more spaces so girls themselves can express their needs, their priorities, and the obstacles they face in realizing their rights and propose solutions to them. So having girls' voices directly in action coalitions is very important. At the same time, action coalitions are also made of, governments. They're also made of UN partners. They're also made of civil society organizations. So all of these actors who have power to influence decisions has a responsibility to include and consult girls in their own work. So governments need to come to the table with the voices of girls in their countries, in the local municipalities, in the areas that they work in. Civil society organizations should come into the action coalitions with the carrying the voices of the girls, adolescents within those networks. So I would really like to see us go into a space where girls' voices are not only channeled through sort of, 1 minute speaking slot in a meeting, but really in a way that it is mainstreamed across the different streams and across the different platforms at various different levels. This conversation here today at the Generation Equality Forum in Mexico is a great start, but this is only the start. This is not the final product, and we need to make sure that these voices continue and these girls continue to lead us and keep fire under our feet as institutions to deliver better for them, because they do have a right to participate in decisions that affect their future.
Ok, muchas gracias por sus palabras inspiradoras y todo lo que han dicho. Creo que por lo menos a mí me dan un poco más de fe en la humanidad. Y bueno, con todo esto, creo que ya podemos retomar en cuenta algunas preguntas y respuestas pues relacionadas a las cosas que hemos estado viendo. Entonces creo que ya podemos escuchar las respuestas de nosotros las panelistas y las diferencias de opiniones que tienen los adolescentes, jóvenes y adultas sobre esto. Satoko Yamachi de Joe Task Force nos leerá unas preguntas para pasar al diálogo sobre ellas. Muchas gracias.
Thank you so much, Sala, and thank you very much, everyone. It was such an amazing panel, hearing directly from adolescent girls, such a very powerful and prominent adolescent leaders. You made all of us feel that to ensure adolescent-centric approach is critical and crucial to achieve the gender equality for all the people. So it was really amazing comment and interventions. Thank you very much, everyone. And also, I really loved what Mia said. We really have to commit to that in the spirit of nothing without us, nothing about us without us, nothing about adolescent leaders without adolescent leaders. That's what I really want to be reminded all the time. So we received several questions, and I will ask some of it to you, to the panelists. The first question that we had is, what kind of collaboration would you like to have with feminist organizations that are not adolescent leaders led? Are you interested in that kind of collaboration? Have you had any cases where it did not succeed in collaborating with feminist organizations? What happened and why? Is anyone who wish to answer this question?
Can I respond, Satoko? Okay, thank you so much. I think you are you have raised the very pertinent question of collaboration and cooperation. It depends on the priorities of the different organizations. For example, in case of a government, when the political government have their own commitment and the priorities, and again, so they have some the commitment to the international documents like the CEDAW, CRC, and Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and all this. And they coming to the at the state level, so they have their strategic plans and the policies. So, and again, when the development partners and the UN agencies are working in a country, they have their own country program, they have their strategy, they have their priorities. And when the major NGOs are getting the resource from the development partners or the international community, so they have their own priority areas and the different commitments. So it is very difficult actually to make alignment among all these priorities. That is why during my statement intervention, I raised that issue actually. During my 15 years working with the donors in Bangladesh, I identified there are so many differences between these commitments, between the policy documents, and between the priorities. So alignment is very, very important. Unless we cannot go ahead with a coordinated approach. So my understanding is that on the basis of the Paris Agreement based in 1995, every development partners need to align with their priorities to the national state party priorities. Now we have one fantastic document like the Sustainable Development Goals documents. It is uniform all over the world. That is why in case of Bangladesh, the 8 5-year plan, they have actually aligned all these policy documents against the Sustainable Development Goals. If the donors community and the UN agencies follow their documents, I think there will be one common point for collaboration and coordination. That is very, very important. Thank you so much, Satoko.
Thank you so much. Thank
Would
you very
be all
much.
right if I could add on?
Of course, yes. Thank you, Danya.
So my activism has mainly centered around WAGS, which is the organization I'm a part of in Girl Guides. So from there, we have a lot of generations. That's mainly my experience. So even though we are tackling a lot of issues that are more controversial, or you could say politically too political, I think it depends on what countries you're from, and different countries have different cultures when expressing themselves in these more controversial topics. For example, in Malaysia, we try to be more politically correct. So it can be difficult sometimes to get your points across that are more, that don't comply with the majority's views. So in my opinion, I think actually I really enjoy working with people who aren't always adolescents as well, because I think with different backgrounds, we can make our feminism more intersectional, or at least just we can take the different backgrounds we have and make our advocacy more empathetic and connect with our audience more.
Adding to what Danya said, so basically learning, we are adolescents, so we are not perfect in every sector that we are in. So from learning from other people, learning from people who are older than us is what we actually want. Like Mia said, she said that we are here to learn and not to be led, right? So I think working with people who are elder than us would give us the opportunity to learn more, and would give them the opportunity to incorporate our ideas into bigger plans that they have for our future, right? So I think it is really very important for us to, talk to people and work with those who are not just young leaders, but who have experienced in this field. Because at the end of the day, we are still learning, and they've seen a lot more than what we have seen till now. So yes, but as Mia said, it's not about being led by them, but learning from them. So that should be kept in mind. I think that would be the reason of failure, that adolescents' opinions are ignored, and they are just there just to show that they care for us, but then our opinions are just ignored. So I think it is really important to incorporate our ideas into whatever the plans and policies that people are going to make in the future, and not just engage us in the activities.
I don't know if there's time for me to maybe add on to what Dania and Darshana said, Satoko. I think I completely agree that this sort of dichotomy, sort of young versus old, we need to get out of that mindset. You know, we are all here to make the change so that we can all have a better world. It's not that we are advocating a better world for just young people, right? We are advocating for a better world for everyone. And I think that sort of spirit of collaboration really need to be kept in mind. I completely agree with Darshana that sort of the generations before us, particularly feminist leaders, they had to go through so much to even win these very basic rights that we are privileged to enjoy. So we really stand on the shoulders of the women who came before us. So there's so much we can learn from their experience, their maturity, and their their reflections on how they achieved where we are now. And young people can bring in a lot of innovation, a lot of creativity, technology, and new ideas really to tackle some of the largest issues that affects the world that we were born into. So I think the most sustainable solutions are intergenerational ones that we co-create together across generations. Having said this, I also want to acknowledge that in every space, doesn't matter if it's the feminist space, doesn't matter if in whatever space that we operate in, age does contribute to barriers in participation many times. So I think even senior feminist leaders need to be really sensitive about the specific barriers that adolescents and girls experience because of their age when they participate in conversations that the girls today outlined. And these including, you know, access to spaces, access to safe spaces, mental health support, and sort of a lot of the girls are doing their activism in addition to their school and in addition to their university, in addition to their work, and they're not being paid to do this work. Whereas sometimes, you know, we at the United Nations or some of the civil society NGO workers get paid to do this work. So I think we really need to be sensitive to these very unique aspects of girls' activism and make sure that the spaces that we create are conducive to increase their potential, not to decrease and burnout, lead to a burnout of their energy and their enthusiasm.
Thank you so
I
much.
want to elaborate on what Darshana said about learning. Okay, I would like to see more sponsorship in terms of leadership empowerment programs for girls and boys, especially from the younger age of 9 years. These programs can be like a camp or an ongoing programs at school. The contents could be something like visiting big companies, observing what the CEO does in a day, getting the chance to ask questions and learn from the CEO's experience will be very beneficial for these future leaders. Same goes to politics. We as children in school are not allowed to know about politics. This must change. We have to educate younger generations about it. We should start kid-friendly politic programs by taking them to parliament buildings, showing them what kind of work is done there, make the politicians available for the kids to ask questions and to know their experience and then how people get involved in politics in the first place. These small things that you can contribute are crucial because this is the kind of education that is missing in our system and can help shape the future. We cannot expect a kid who knows nothing about leader to be a great leader when they are adults. Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither are the leaders. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mia, and that was a very interesting input. I think we're almost on time. I would like to have Satoko read more questions if you had any.
Thank you so much, Manal. One more question that we received is specifically for Darshana. She already answered that in the Q&A, but your answer was really amazing and perfect. So I would like you to speak about it also verbally. The question that we received was, how could you prepare yourself to face all the possible challenges that you indicate within your country and around the globe?
So as I talked before, while addressing the first question I had, I think investing in girls is the most important thing right now. Yes, there have been actions, there have been policies that have been made, but more specifically, I see that more into women and not into adolescent girls from as young as age 9, right? So I think investing in girls would make us independent in the future. So only when one is independent, she won't be dependent to anybody else, and she won't be suppressed by the society. So the root cause of gender inequality that I believe is because women are not able to stand in their own feet. They are not able to take their potential, economic potential, advantage of their economic potential, right? They are underestimated from the whole society. So I think that, yes, the challenge is really huge to invest in girls, to build up the base of, and to build up the whole mentality of the whole society. But if we are able to increase education and empower girls and women, only then will we be able to empower women, and only then I think will there be an end to this gender violence, and society will gradually start to think in a more gender equal way, because the past generation is already in the past. What we need to look at is, we need to look at the future. We need to make the world a better place for coming generations, and not make them suffer how we suffered or how past generations suffered. So to do that, I think investing in girls, especially making things like networks, global networks, like national networks of young adolescent girls, especially in such a virtual world where we are all sitting here from different parts of the world and discussing about gender equality. I think investing into building up girls' network and bringing up a whole new reform shall be done by us as advocates, as young advocates, and people who want to bring a change in the society for the betterment of the society. So I think this is really important to empower girls and invest into girls. So I have been also thinking about this idea of building up a whole girls network from 10 to 19 age within Nepal, but it's just an idea. I've not searched for investors or donations yet, but yes, I want to build up a network where girls will be able to share their problems, and then we can reach out to responsible authorities to solve it and empower them by themselves. So it's like supporting each other by us ourselves within our community. So I think investing in girls is the most important part. But of course, it's really hard and difficult, but trying, when there's a will, there is a way, right? So yes, I think investing in girls is the most important thing to tackle gender inequality.
I'd like to add on to what Darshana said, if that's okay. So as she said, investing in girls is very important, right? So I guess one of the biggest proof that we have on how important it is this panel right here. The fact that our families invested in us and allowed us to get the education that we've all received, even though we're on different levels right now, we're at a global platform where we're discussing the importance of gender equality, and we're, in a way, we are progressing towards gender equality right now, and that in itself shows how important it is to invest in women. We're all from different parts of the world, yet we're all here together, bonded by our collective, like, how our sufferings from the patriarchal society, bonding towards how we can get out of this bubble and how we can proceed towards gender equality. That in itself is a success on its own. And moving on from that, I agree with her. It's very important for us to understand that this is going to be a butterfly effect, right? So if we educate the current youth, that youth is going to make efforts to help progress the future youth. So it's like a butterfly effect. It's a ripple effect, that the more we invest in the women of our society, the more we invest in our adolescents, the more they're going to invest in the future. And I'm pretty sure at one point we will finally achieve gender equality. Thank you.
I just want to add a tiny little bit.
Okay.
Investing in educating little boys to appreciate and respect girls are also important. To have men raised by feminist mothers would change the world for sure. Thank you.
Manal, can I make intervention?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much. I can share actually some of the good practices in Bangladesh. One is the UNFPA is implementing one project with the Ministry of Children Affairs for promoting the generation breakthrough. It means actually it involves the people from all ages, including the children and youths, and then make the dialogue on different issues. And it creates a real change actually. The old people, they can understand the concern of the young generation. Young generation also, they can get the idea about their tradition and the culture and the norms. So this is the way, so we can go ahead with making a very comprehensive and peaceful and secure societies. The second one, in Bangladesh, I think there is the Plan International Bangladesh, they are promoting the child parliament. In that parliament actually, so the one child will become the speaker, and then the another one, the deputy speaker. They are doing all these things, and they are mobilizing the young generations, particularly the children all over the country. And during the COVID situation, they organized that parliament session through Zoom. I have had the opportunity to physically attend the program, I think 1 year back. It was really fantastic actually. And the honorable the speaker right now, the Dr. Shirin Sharmin Chaudhary, she invited the young generation, particularly the children, to go to the parliament to see actually how the parliament session is going on. It's a huge collaboration. And then she created one special space for the children, and that is with the judges of the High Court actually. And it is very prestigious for the children to sit with the judges of the Supreme Court in Bangladesh. I think it's a fantastic arrangement in the National Parliament. The third one actually, the last year during the Child Rights Week in Bangladesh, which was actually inaugurated by the Honorable Prime Minister, I have introduced one very new concept. That is in Bangla, it is called the Amar Kotha Shuno, means they listen to the children actually. The children will speak, and the people who are in positions, policy making position, in the executive position, they will listen. The listeners included basically the honorable ministers, honorable mayors, and the other high officials from the government. And the children actually, they are participating from all over the country actually. They participate in the Zoom meeting and they raise their issues directly to the policymakers. I think it's a great occasion actually. And on the spot actually, that policy people make some decisions which remains very beautiful, which become very benefited actually to the children. The fourth one actually, the Ministry of Finance, they have introduced the child responsive budgeting system in Bangladesh. And in the parliament, when they place the national budget, they place separate document for the child responsive budgeting. I think it's a new, initiative in Bangladesh. The many ministries actually, they are trying to incorporate the child issues in a different way, and they are reporting in a different way. I think this is a positive change in our culture, and that is why the different ministries and divisions, they're coming up with a specific allocation, specific programs and projects for the children and for the welfare of the children. I think the nations around the world, they can take these good practices to practice in their own situation. Thank you so much, Manal.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. what I would just like to add is, while talking about traditions and culture around the world and in these countries, we should really just acknowledge that today the trouble that we're in as women is also because of those same cultures and traditions. And while we teach the new generation what these cultures and traditions are, we should constantly try to correct them and look at them in a more analytical and a critical way as to how they have been detrimental towards women and girl children. Besides that, that was just a little bit of my input. Besides that, is if anyone has anything to add, I would just like to give the floor out to literally anyone. Okay.
Would that be all right?
Yeah, sure, go ahead. And then Xally can go.
All right, so I just want to add on to what Darshana, Gulmina, and Abdul have said. I think it's so important that we empower women to be prepared for the challenges they're going to face rather than trying to reverse the actions after she has faced the challenges. Like adding on to what Gulmina said, why is it that society only cares about a young woman's safety and independence only when her life is in danger because of it? I think that it tells a lot about how much we actually prioritize young women's well-being. And it just like reminded me of the saying that an ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure. So I think even like now, trying to empower women through education is like a really long process. And even now, I feel like just giving them the skill of critical thinking, teaching them that it's okay to not have to be agreeable all the time, and they can have different views on feminism. Like they do not have to follow what mainstream things are saying constantly. They can have their own views because our views on feminism and gender equality are shaped by our unique experiences. That's what makes us so special and how we can add to the movement. So I think that's what I wanted to add.
Xally, you wanted to say something?
Sí, sí tenemos que escuchar a las niñas, pero creo que todo esto viene de como de los adultos para poder tomarlos en cuenta, sino también darle como algún tipo de atención a los adultos, información y así organizaciones, porque muchas veces nada más los toman en cuenta, pero son muy pocas veces. No se da seguimiento con eso y lo dejan a medias, ¿no? Para mí, yo tengo, después, en mi proyecto de vida, tengo pensado ayudar a las niñas porque sé que no hay información en mi comunidad donde yo vivo, no hay suficiente información para apoyarlas, no hay centros, bueno, no se conocen los suficientes para, en caso de alguna denuncia, en caso de algún abuso, nada más se conocen 2 o 3 asociaciones. Le falta mucha publicidad, por así decirlo, mucha información de parte de todo, ¿no? Del gobierno. Entonces, creo que juntando todas las ideas que dijeron las compañeras, podemos hacer algo grande, ¿no?
Yes, we could be ending on that very hopeful note, but does anyone have anything else to add to the conversation?
Yes, last thing.
Sure.
Your gender shouldn't determine whether you get an education, but if you educate a man, you educate an individual. But if you educate a woman, you educate a nation. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Sara, did you have anything to add?
Bueno, tal vez lo único que tendría que agregar es que en base a todo lo que han dicho, justamente me inspira a pensar en que podemos crear mecanismos con los que podemos hacer justicia, con los que podemos facilitar la educación. Creo que en todos los países de los que nos conforman en esta reunión, vivimos problemas similares. Creo que, como había dicho Darshana, aquí lo que nos une justamente es este sufrimiento colectivo, ¿no? Pero al mismo tiempo, usualmente me gusta pensar en que con nuestra voz sí podemos cambiar el mundo, porque ya lo estamos haciendo. Creo que hace 20 años, hace 30 años, estas ideas tal vez no hubieran surgido con la misma facilidad, pero hoy estamos justamente alzando la voz para pensar en los problemas que nuestra sociedad tiene hoy. Justamente estamos hablando, estamos alzando la voz, porque sabemos que aún no somos libres del todo. Pero creo que con el esfuerzo, creo que con nuestro trabajo, realmente podemos hacer un cambio y los líderes del mundo nos pueden escuchar. Muchas gracias.
Manal, can I make intervention?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much. I think there is an urgent need actually to have the gender segregated data actually. So without data, so the policy makers cannot go for the interventions and taking the special cares. So data is very, very important actually. And then if you are talking about the inequality between the rural and urban and between the different classes of the people, we need the data actually. But in a country, I think in most of the countries, the census is being conducted at every 10th year. So you have to wait actually for 10 years for getting the very comprehensive data for each and every one. And then there are some periodic survey and study, and on the basis of that, they make some projections. But still in Bangladesh, we have the population around 170 million. But we are lacking a huge data gaps actually. That is why we don't know actually what is going on around the country. And it may happen to other developing countries also. This is very, very important one. The second one, the resource portal actually. I think a couple of years back, sometimes in 2008, the SARP has make one initiative with the support of the UN Women to create the gender info base, gender information actually. But that was not lasting for a quite long time. I think the information is very, very important. While the people are making the policy documents, they're lacking the information, the basic information. If we're talking about the gender-based violence, if we're talking about the access to justice, if we're talking about the access to resources, whatever you call, but that the gap is there actually. So that is why I'm talking, I am giving emphasis on these two aspects. One is data is very, very important. And the second one, the information is also very important. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for bringing that up.
Thank you very much, Mahal. Because we have only 2 minutes left, we can go to the closure now. Manal, maybe we can go to the closure.
Creo que ya para cerrar sería bueno, por lo menos desde mi parte, dejar un mensaje de reflexión, ¿no? Pensar en todo lo que hablamos hoy, pensar en todas las problemáticas, intersecciones que nos atraviesan, pensar en cómo podemos solucionar estos problemas desde nuestros lugares. Como jóvenes sabemos que probablemente la tenemos más difícil, pero al mismo tiempo somos quienes seremos el futuro en algún momento, seremos el presente en algún momento. Entonces, nunca viene mal pensar y trabajar en planes que tenemos para mejorar el mundo. Pero ya no solo el mundo, sino nuestras comunidades, las personas que están cerca de nosotros. Y justamente creo que para finalizar, lo único que quiero decir es que pensemos en cómo podemos hacer de nuestras comunidades, de nuestros lugares y de nuestros contextos un lugar que sea más seguro, un lugar que sea más libre y justo. Gracias. Creo que con esto ya se puede finalizar la sesión. Muchas gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you very much to everyone.
Thank you.